if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, particularly for that audience, what is this podcast going to do? It's going to help them kind of see their financial operations in a new light and hopefully give them tools to be able to bring to their business and to real optimize.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is 𝙘𝙥𝙖𝙤𝙤𝙤. I'm here with Ron Parisi, and we're getting this podcast started. We have some ideas we're going to float out there. But just to start with, we kind of want to go over the history of CPA on Fire and kind of how we got here today and who we're talking to with this podcast. And I started CPA on Fire way back in 2012. And at that point, it was just targeted to these small business owners. My mom actually had like this jewelry business where she had a downline under her. So I was doing a lot of their tax returns, and it was really small. And I had this event that kind of changed the course of the business and my life, where I reached out to John Dumas, the host of Entrepreneur on Fire. And he had me not only do his taxes, but come on the show every month to do a tax tip. And that's when we kind of began targeting online business owners. And it grew exponentially from there. We really reached out to that audience. We clicked with that audience, began to understand them. But when I had the firm, we were mostly focused on taxes, or people would come to us at the end of the year. We would do their tax returns. We would have packages. We would work with them some throughout the year on some tax planning, entity setup, that kind of stuff. But then towards the very end of my ownership, we started getting into more of the bookkeeping and the year-round type stuff. But then Ron took over CPA on Fire in 2019. He's been owning and operating it ever since then. And it's kind of just blown me away on where he's taking it, way past anything I could have ever expected for this business. So Ron, why don't you kind of introduce yourself and what CPA on Fire is doing now?
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, Josh. And we're very obviously appreciative. I think it's always hard to get the rock moving, to call it the first rock to roll over, to cause the avalanche. But yeah, so since 2019, just to give you a little background about myself, I'm a CPA attorney, came out of the big four accounting firms, did some things in the corporate life, and had my own accounting firm since 2014. And then just always wanted to build a advisory firm around like helping business owners, truly giving them what they need to run their business and run their business extremely profitable, growth, and again, focusing on impact. So when we acquired CPA on Fire in 2019, it was just kind of the next logical step to take what you were doing with the bookkeeping and to really transform it into the advisory services, and just bringing like my experience from like in corporate America, how I would interact with my CFO and my controllers, and then really understanding what the online entrepreneur, because no online entrepreneur I've ever met just wants to grow 2 or 3% a year. They want to grow 30 to 5x. So just basically building a set of tools and understanding like entrepreneurs, one, they move fast, and two, they don't have a lot of time. So just building tools for them to really give them insights about their business and just really look forward instead of in the rearview mirror. Right after we acquired the firm, 2020 started COVID. And with those challenges, luckily we're already virtual, and we were able to help a lot of entrepreneurs navigate the COVID situation, and a lot of the online entrepreneurs actually benefited. Everybody went online. They were able to capture market share, and we grew exponentially during that time and all the way through. Now we're here at the end of 2023. So
awesome. So you mentioned something. I read this in the book. I just read it this weekend, actually. But you talked about the forward versus rear looking. Can you kind of explain that and how most people work with their accountants and what the difference is between those two things?
Yeah, I think that from our standpoint, or like corporate background, everything's done in the rearview mirror, mostly for regulatory purposes. You're filing a tax return, we're coming up on the October 16th, 15th deadline. You're filing for 2022. You're filing for the year in the past. If you're a public company, right, you're always filing with the SEC on a quarterly basis for the past quarter, the past year. So like, I think traditional accounting firms are just so set up for doing everything in the past, rear view mirrors. And there's some good reason to do that. And particularly when you look at comps, right? So you look month to month, year to date to the year to date last year, so you can get a real good feel for how the company's growing. But I just think from my perspective as a business owner, you should be looking forward. And what does that mean? That means creating budgets and forecasts, looking at like what's driving both top line and bottom line, your revenue drivers and then your profit drivers. And just always, we always like a monthly cadence. So just always looking at month to month, budget to actual, and then every month we call course correct. Slight course corrects every month as you're getting that data, budget to actual. And over like consecutive months, I mean, you just see these entrepreneurs just continue to make small changes in their business, whether it's ad spend, team, personnel, software, R&D, really make tremendous gains when you have that forward-looking perspective. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's definitely true. And that's something that I kind of struggled with when I had CPA on fire is you're working with people at the end of the year and then it's too late to make changes. And then you don't see them again till the next end of the year. So let's say that there's people listening to this. Let's say this girl's got a $2 million a year business. She's doing 2 million in sales. Maybe she sells courses on whatever it is, right? And she's saying to herself, she's listening and saying, well, I have a bookkeeper. I have a tax guy that does my taxes, talks to me a little bit throughout the year. What am I missing out on? What could CPA on fire do differently?
Yeah. So that's your traditional setup. You have a bookkeeper, probably doesn't really know your business that well, doesn't have any comps as far as like benchmarking you against other online sellers, whether that's courses, digital marketing, whatever your industry is. So you don't have the benchmarks. And then you have a separate tax guy, person, professional who probably is not getting real-time numbers, probably hasn't set up a plan, a long-term tax saving strategy for you, doesn't check back with you on the quarters to make sure you're implementing that plan. Like you said, your typical accountant doesn't get involved until it's already past the year. It's too late to do the things. And then the big thing for me is like marrying cash flow. So I'll get to the bookkeeping and that perspective, but like just to talk a little about cash flow. And that's, I think there's different stages in the business. And in my mind, there's like the startup phase, but then there's a phase where the business starts to take off. And this is where what I talk about is like the wealth building piece of it. So it's like you're trying to balance building your own personal wealth with funding the business and fueling that growth, whether it's ad spend, team, et cetera. And then after that sort of that balance, then when you have a business that's doing really well, then you're able to really decide on where am I going to put the cash, where am I going to keep the cash? And that has each phase has its own tax planning perspectives. And you don't want to go and spend a ton of money just to get tax deductions when you could be spending that money on a serious ROI on advertising. So it's just that holistic approach coming in between understanding where the money's going, what's the profitability, what are the margins of the business, and then marrying that tax plan. So what do we do at CPA on Fire? So the first thing we do is we do your financials and we help you build those forecasts and those budgets. And then we work with you on that monthly basis to look at how are you performing to what you thought how you were going to perform, how you're going to course correct, month to month, as we talked about. And then the second piece is just, again, looking at that positive cash flow analysis. And we like to go out 24 months and see what are we doing with that positive cash flow? Are we reinvesting it back in the business? Looking at that ROI? Are we taking it off the table to build your personal wealth? Are we looking at other maybe passive investments? And the third piece is the tax plan, not just having a 1 year at the end of the year, let's go out and buy a Tesla, but a real tax strategy, looking at all the ways we can save you money throughout the year. And then also like having a long-term strategy, like a 5-year strategy, knowing like what the progressive income tax rates, what's your tax rate today compared to tomorrow, compared to 5 years ago. As your business grows, you're going to be in a higher tax bracket. So just trying to manage those strategies throughout the next 5 years, 10 years. So that's kind of, I know that's a lot to unpack there or a lot we brought in there, but that's kind of our perspective coming in and really being your financial operations team and giving you the tools that you need to really optimize profitability, positive cash flow, tax savings.
Cool. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think you might have specifically been talking to me since I bought a Tesla at the end of last year, but I'll take that in stride. But no, I think that's exactly what it is. You still need that past information. You still need that rear view mirror, but then how are you going to apply that looking forward? That's the important part. And I think that's what working with someone year round and more than just a bookkeeping and tax role does. So, and then in your book, you kind of talked about this, and I've seen clients in the past kind of wonder about this, but how do you decide whether to go an internal role, let's say about hire a CFO, hire a controller, whatever it is, versus hiring a firm like CPA on Fire to handle it externally? And what are the benefits and pros and cons of each option there?
Yeah, there's a couple of thoughts I have on that. One is it's very difficult to, I'll be biased, right? From our perspective, we're bringing the bookkeeper, we're bringing the accounting manager that's making sure that's everything's right. We're bringing that CFO, the person who's got that knowledge about the industry, has a very high business acumen, being able to analyze financial analysis, being able to create the digital reports, the graphical report, dashboards that you need to operate your business. So that's like bookkeeper, accounting manager, CFO. And then on top of that, okay, then we have the tax planning piece, or you have a tax strategist, and you also need your taxes done. So then you got a tax compliance person. So right there, that's 5 people. And those are 5 people that are very tough. One, it doesn't make sense to hire them full time because it would cost you a fortune. And then to sort of bring those people on a virtual or part-time basis, tough to kind of manage that and manage that whole process. So one is, I think that we bring the whole team kind of soup to nuts all the way through. And then what I see, 2 things is like our clients have gotten big, certain clients have grown significantly, and then they go out and they hire a CFO. And then that CFO, they realize is like, oh, they came from a more traditional background. So they're doing all this rear view mirror stuff. 2 is that they're probably not doing the accounting. So very few CFOs are actually doing the QuickBooks work and reconciling accounts. So then you need another accounting person. But I find like the last like few hires of CFOs didn't work out because they're more traditional and they didn't have that growth perspective, the pace at which entrepreneurs work at. So I think it's twofold. You got the whole COF team, and then 2 is just hiring somebody with the right mindset to help you achieve your goals as the business owner. So those are kind of why I think it makes sense to hire a firm like CPA on Fire to kind of fit all your needs. And then the last perspective is like, you're not held hostage to your employees. Somebody gives you 2 weeks notice. Somebody says, I have a competing offer. I want 20% more. It's like all of a sudden you're hostage to that one individual. And that person has that institutional knowledge of your company. So when you hire a CPA on Fire, you're not going to get that. We work on 1-year contracts, and pretty much no surprises with us. So at least that's what we preach. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. It reminds me. So after I got out of CPA on Fire and out of the tax world a little bit, I got into real estate and started flipping houses. And when I first started doing it, I went the route that most people are attempted to do. And I said, oh, I can hire my own floor, and I can hire my own painter, and I can hire my own cabinet installers. And it was just a nightmare because the painters would show up before the flooring people, or this guy would show up when this guy was supposed to be there. This guy wouldn't show up at all, and the prices would go way up. And then finally, on my 3rd or 4th flip, I hired a general contractor that he handled all of that. So I was no longer in charge of getting each piece. He was. If something went wrong, it was his problem, not mine. I paid one person. They handled all the other people. And in theory, it should have cost me a little more. That's why I was hesitant. But I think by the time it was all said and done, it actually cost me significantly less. I had less stress and less headaches. So it kind of seems like it's almost like you guys act as like the general contractor for the financial side of these companies' business.
Yeah, I would say you're going to outsource your whole financial operation team. And then what's interesting in that is I just think that you've been in real estate forever. So like keeping you in your sphere of like where you're super powerful, your unique skill sets, identifying undervalued houses, being able to close the deal, negotiating, that's like your level of expertise. All of a sudden, like you're now deciding like how the countertops should be installed or the plumbing, and all of a sudden you're outside of your unique abilities, right? It's not the best use of your time. And I talk the same thing about our clients. Like, let's keep you guys, like my clients are like super creative people. they need to unbelievable marketers. They come up with these great products. And so we have to try to keep them in that sphere of where they can really make a huge impact on their business. And they don't need to be figuring out how to do QuickBooks reconciliations. They don't, dealing with reading Kippinger letters on tax plans and things like that. Let's keep people where they can make the greatest impact in their business. So,
right. Yeah. And there's all kinds of temptations out there on TikTok on how you can get tax deductions, and you want people to just basically ignore that, or at the very least see something and send it to you guys and be like, hey, is this a fit for me? But you don't need to spend your time researching tax deductions and everything else. Hand it all to professionals. So one more thing on this part, I want to talk specifically about CFOs, because that's the position I hear businesses talking about all the time. Like, do I need a CFO? When do I need a CFO? Then on the flip side, I see a lot of accounting firms or even bookkeepers saying oh, we offer CFO services. So can you just talk a bit about what you see a CFO is actually doing and who needs one and what they should look for in that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a tough question to answer. When do you hire the CFO? But let me just address the first thing is a lot of accounting firms are yeah, we offer CFO services. And then what that ends up being is glorified bookkeeper. What you really need to do is you kind of have to open the hood up and look underneath. And do these guys understand your business? First of all, do they understand your industry? Are they able to benchmark what you're doing? For us, we're pretty deep in the online space. So we have a lot of information about what's going on in the online space and being able to see what's working for some clients, see what's not working for others, and be able to bring that value to our clients. So in my viewpoint, that's the true CFO, that trusted advisor that's helping you step by step achieve your goals as the business owner and the entrepreneur. And then that's what I get. When should I reach out and get my own CFO and stop working with CPA on fire? It all depends on your business. I would love to give you, if you hit 20 million, that's probably the right time. But it really has a lot to do with the sophistication of your business. And what I see is when entrepreneurs start getting successful, they start acquiring more businesses, and you really need somebody to manage that complexity. Because no matter what, very rarely never have I seen a business grow where complexity doesn't also grow. So when you get to a certain level of complexity that you really need somebody to watch over all of your companies, that's probably the right time to kind of hire a CFO and a consolidator. But we've worked with $20 million companies quite comfortably. And again, it all depends on how complex. And usually we're the first to tell, say, okay, now it's time to bring in the CFO, to bring in your own accounting team. And whether that's 20 million in revenues, 50 million or I don't know. But it depends on the business itself and what the goals of the business are. But I think for an entrepreneur that goes out and wants to hire what we call a virtual CFO or for hire CFO, you got to really know what you're getting yourself into, what the expertise, the experience level, industry knowledge of the consultant that you're going to be hiring.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think just be careful with anyone that says they offer CFO services, because as you said, we see it all the time in this industry where I've seen bookkeeping companies where they say we're fractional CFOs. Well, they're providing you a profit and loss statement. That's not a CFO. So be very careful and make sure what they're actually doing.
I mean, on the flip side too, is where we see it is there's for hire CFOs, and you'll get somebody that used to work at a Fortune, 5,000 company, and they know very little about technology, and they're just used to working with a much larger organization, much slower moving organization. And these individuals don't like change. It's pretty funny to watch them. And they really get frustrated with the technology piece of the business. So again, make sure the person you're bringing on to help you understand your business and understands what the tools are that you're utilizing, payment processors and all kinds of different technologies, CRM systems and things like that. I think you have to have a real understanding on API and how you can utilize all that information from an analytical standpoint. So
for sure. Yeah. If one of their first questions is what's Stripe, that's probably not going to be a fit for you. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about kind of who the audience is for CPA on Fire, and by extension, who this podcast is going to be targeted to. And then we can kind of go into what we see this podcast becoming.
Yeah, sure. When you and I kind of started talking about the podcast, right, we're nobody's talking about financial operations for business owners and entrepreneurs, and particularly in the online space. And then we were like, man, I don't know if there's enough topics, but I think we kind of rattled off at least like 20 of them. So I think the audience is who our ideal audience is probably going to be somebody who's got a established business, maybe a 7-figure type revenue, and wants to make that next leap. Maybe they're a $1 to $3 million business and they want to get to 10. Maybe they're a $5 million business and they want to get to 50. But somebody who wants to grow, somebody who already has an established business, who's already what I call has some entrepreneurial dust on them. They've been probably knocked down and gotten back up. So they understand like the value of really good financials and really good financial perspectives. So, and then I think for that audience, what is this podcast going to do? It's going to help them kind of see their financial operations in a new light and hopefully give them tools to be able to bring to their business and to real optimize. Like I always talk about, the first thing, let's optimize profitability, let's optimize growth. And even if, I'm not really in it for the money, but like it's the impact, like profit growth allows you a larger impact on this world, and whatever your purpose and whatever you see your purpose here, you can make a bigger impact through your organization, through your business. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Money magnifies whatever you want to do, whatever impact you want to have. So yeah, I mean, for me, I think what I kind of envision the podcast, and this is all evolving. We could get 5 episodes in, it could become something completely different. But kind of what I'm envisioning is just, so I started, when we started talking about this, I searched like accounting podcasts, and almost all of them are targeted to other accountants, how to grow your accounting business. Then there's some that target specifically like people wanting to start a business or just starting a business. So like you said, this is more geared towards people that are established. Maybe they're already doing 6 or 7 figures or more in revenue or close to it, and they just need that next level. They want to hear what's going on in their industry, in the accounting world or the financial world. Accounting sounds more boring. Financials is more all encompassing, I think. And like you and I were just talking before we recorded this, like you were saying, you've seen a lot of people struggling in September and October. Their conversion rates are down, whatever it is, and just kind of talk about this is what we're seeing. So these people in this space can say, yeah, that's good to hear, because that's where I'm at. Or they're defying those odds and they're saying, what are we doing right that no one else is doing? So I think that's kind of where I see it going as a resource for people that are in that space, whether they decide to work with CPM Fire, already work with CPM Fire, have another team, whatever it is, just gives them knowledge that they can take back to their team and say, hey, I want to start implementing these things. These are what other people are doing, and just kind of be a resource on that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and the most important thing is to understand it and be able to bring changes and ideas to your business. And then the next thing is, why do this, right? Is that you've been successful in your life. And I feel like we have a really good practice here. And it's just doing something like I love. And hopefully I think you feel the same way. And that's working with entrepreneurs. There's nothing better than talking to an entrepreneur and hearing about how they want to grow, make an impact on this world, and then helping them do that. Like, for me, that's like super rewarding. I love the energy. I love just the satisfaction of helping people achieve what they want to. So this is a way, obviously we can only handle so many clients at CPM Fire, and this is a way to maybe have a larger reach out to a greater audience.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And I think one thing that'd be cool down the road, maybe we get some brave people on here that are doing things right. And we kind of interview these entrepreneurs like, hey, where did you start? What did you recognize you need? And just kind of go through their journey of getting to this, to the place that we're talking about, of optimizing their financial team and using it correctly.
No, I think that's definitely in the works, sure. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yep. Cool. Anything else you want to touch on before?
No, I think we touched on a lot of topics. I think I'm excited about jumping off on this process, and let's get it going. So I think it was really good taste for people to see what we're all about. So thanks, Josh. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'm excited for the next one.
Yeah. All right. We'll catch up later. Thanks.